Sabah al-khair, good morning. Let's take advantage of the time we have here and our speaker. We're privileged and honored to welcome Dr. Yu to Jordan. Thank you very much for coming. It's a great privilege. Many thanks to the Schuman Foundation for inviting Dr. Yu. I'll be privileged to be today's moderator. Dr. Yu needs no introduction. He's been one of the principal architects of the Singaporean economic miracle. We believe there are many similarities between Jordan and Singapore, and that many lessons can be learned, and hopefully we can take away some important lessons from today as many of us here, youth, policymakers, and the like, think about how we can push human capital development and economic development in Jordan. I will only speak very briefly. We are here to hear from Dr. Yu and to interact with him. But just very briefly, oftentimes when we think of Jordan, we say small country, 90,000 square kilometers. It pales in size to the neighboring countries like Saudi Arabia. And yet Singapore, 750 square kilometers. No thousands, 750 square kilometers. We think of population when we talk about economic development. Jordan is about 10 million people. 70% Jordanian, 30% non-Jordanian. Singapore today population today is only 5.5 million people, so smaller than Jordan. Density-wise, Singapore is the third most dense country in the world. So even when we think about density and space, natural resources, we often say we don't have natural resources here. Human capital is our number one resource. This is the same in Singapore. No oil, no gas. No land, no food, no rice, no milk, no gold. There's nothing basically there. Young country as well. Jordan's independence 1946, Singapore 1959. 65 afterwards, after the younger with after a little tiff with Malaysia. We think of, and then we look at some of the broader numbers today. We look at in purchasing power parity, GDP and GDP per capita. Jordan's about 80 billion in GDP and 11,000 GDP per capita on a purchasing power parity. Look at Singapore and what they've done the last 40 years. It's about 550 billion and GDP per capita is about 95,000. So a phenomenal economic miracle. Maybe we'll win on one thing. Our region is highly unstable and there are successive black swan events. Just recently, the Iraq War in 2003, Arab Spring, civil war in Syria, ISIS, Daesh, but even for Singapore, the region in which it is located is a tough one. Many larger neighbors and big neighbors, much larger, a lot of geopolitical moves going on there. So they've faced many challenges, and yet despite those challenges, it's been able in a generation to move from the un-PC term of a third world country to the un-PC term of a first world country, developing to developed economy. So Dr. Yu, we're honored to hear from you.
Controlling the slides.
We will have a presentation by Dr. Yu, maybe 40 minutes or so.
I'll go through the presentation quite fast, then I'll open to questions. Maybe they can switch off the light in the center. Yeah, the center light. Because it looks a bit blurred here. Ready? Okay. I thought I have two presentations. One is for tonight, which is a smaller one, focusing on innovation. But for this group, since there are a lot of young people, I will cover economic development plus innovation. So you are a privileged group. Yeah. So it's a very young country. We started only in 1965. Okay, can see better. So I came home from Canada in 1970. So between 1965 to 1970, okay. Oh, good. I'll use that one. Yeah, that's better. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So between 1965, we became independent. But until 1970, we're still under the British protection, under the defense agreement. And the British withdrew in 1970-71. So I look at Singapore as post-70-71. So we are still quite a young nation. I came home from Canada in 1970 and was straight away involved with the government and to them. So if you look at the curve, today we are at a point of how far can we go? So our next page. Our economy is diversified. Now remember in 1965 to 70, we are purely a trading nation. From 1819 to 1970, we just buy import, export. So, and the problem is that that doesn't create enough jobs. You have merchants, you have traders. So the government tried to focus on industrial development. So today, the industrial development is more balanced. But in 1970, we tried to create up to manufacturing 25% of GDP. And it was only trade. Today, we are more balanced. The economy is quite a balanced growth. Okay, next. Now, I will give you this is an example of steps. In 1960 to 70, we just create as many jobs as we can. So therefore, it's very labor-intensive employment. And the government built infrastructure, the roads, the electricity, water, the factories, empty buildings, and our job of EDB. EDB was my main agency, started in 1961, so we created labor. Then by the 70s, we focused on skill. What kind of industry do you want to attract that will create jobs that skill? And then 1980s, where I was deeply involved, was focusing on more capital. And then 1990s, more on technology. Today, we are in what I call the knowledge-based economy, because we have reached the point that we have to use our human talent more because we have full employment. Unemployment is about 2%. Young people are well educated. Lots of people are in universities and polytechnic. Our universities have about 25% of young people. Polytechnic has about 35, so we are fairly balanced, and below are the vocational skill. At this point in time, I focused on the knowledge-based economy from 2001, where I also assumed the job in charge of science and research. I took over the portfolio in addition to my EDB in 2001. Next. These are industries we have in Singapore. Remember, we have no, land is very limited, population is small, but we focus on engineering. So today we are fairly sizable in aerospace. We do a lot of components. We don't make planes. We know components, avionics, machine parts. Biomedical, we are in drugs, in devices. Logistics, we are a logistics hub for companies around the region. Energy and chemicals, we have no oil, no gas, but we are a major refinery. We refine 1.1 million barrels of oil a day, but we produce about $50 billion US worth of exports of petrochemical. So that's the area. Okay, sorry, I speak very fast. Marine engineering, we don't build ships, we do rigs. So you go to Mexico, you go to Brazil, we build rigs. And rigs is engineering, control engineering. So we are quite strong there. Electronics is on our key. We don't produce a finished product, we produce components. So when you buy an iPhone, there are components made in Singapore, because if you use components, it's more capital, more skill. If you do a finished product, it's more assembly. So what I have done since 86 was no finished product, focus on components, focus on sub-assemblies, focus on value added, because we have a small population. Next. Today, now, the key for Singapore is that we have no market. So the key is for us to make Singapore a hospitality for industry. We go out there, my colleagues and I go out there to companies, target them, and bring them to Singapore and tell them, look, Singapore is a window to Asia. From Singapore, you can set up operations, 100% tax-free, 100% ownership, good logistics, stable government, boring place, quiet, safe, and then you can. So today we have all these companies in Singapore. Most of them use Singapore as a financial center too. So in terms of per capita, they are safer in Singapore, but the service, Indonesia, China, India, all from Singapore. Next. Now, the chemical part I'll try to explain to you. This is an example where a small country with no resources. So what do I have? Small little islands on the top. I'm not sure you can see it. Let's see. Those are small little islands, no bigger than few rocks. So I came up with a plan to reclaim. So buy sand from my neighbor under the sea. I don't steal their sand. I steal it under the sea. And then reclaim. So we spent about $7 billion to reclaim this chemical island. We are the most integrated petrochemical complex in the world. More complex than Rotterdam or Houston, because unlike Rotterdam and Houston, they have major companies running the place. Here, everybody is here. So in the same way I call it the hospitality business. I build the infrastructure, I build the electricity, the water, the connections, and everybody co-locate together. So we are exporting from here. So my friends from Saudi Arabia always come inspire me. See how is it you are able to do this? So now the Saudis are trying to do the same, go downstream, because in the past they would just produce the oil and ship it out. So you look at this industry, sizable employment. Next. Now, let's go back. Go back last slide. See, this value here, investments, the companies, 8,000 employees. The value added of the employee is about $500,000 US. So it's important. Next, chemicals, I just go through. Next, now, electronics is the key. Everything you touch in the phone, in the TV, in future electric cars, is all electronics. So we produce all our components. Today we produce components for nearly every product, or even data storage too. Next. And those are value added. Okay. Now, precision engineering. Precision engineering for young mechanical engineers, this is the broadest area. Aircraft engines, machine parts, lots of areas. So this is a very high value. Even in your disk drive, there are a lot of mechanical parts. Next. Biomedical. Now, biomedical is an industry which I focused in 2001 to this day. My idea is that the most important industry is healthcare. Healthcare is very important, and healthcare has two parts. One is drugs, two is medical services. So you have to, they are quite different. Medical services means hospitals, good doctors, good specialty. So you need to have a high quality medical practices. And drugs, producing the drugs are two kinds. The chemical drugs, like your pills, the other is biologics, which is mainly in cancer drugs. Next. So the biomedical is very young, such as 2000. Depend on the value down there, we have gone quite high. Employs 20,000 people. The value added for biomedical is $1 million per person. Sizable area. Next. Now, these are drugs. So many of these drugs on top, Lonza, Amgen, Genentech, they are all medical drugs, cancer drugs. We do not produce generics. All the products we have are proprietary drugs, whether it's chemical drugs, single molecule, or biologic. They're all patented. So therefore, they know that Singapore is safe. Nobody will copy them. Unlike China, India, there are a lot of generics and also copying, even Thailand, we're doing that. Now, when this company comes to Singapore, I give them tax holiday up to 15 years, zero tax. If I don't give them tax holiday, they will not come because there's no market. On the other hand, being in Singapore is safe, steady. They make money, but they create jobs all down the line. Next. And it's medical devices is the other area. People forget, when you go to a hospital, bed, all devices. Besides drugs and doctors, a hospital too is a very technical area, so we focus a lot on devices. Next. And these are the new startups that we have, companies that we got. Next. Now, the key for many of the medical companies that using Singapore as a base, they produce parts and components, they assemble, they ship it out, but they are headquarters. We give them headquarters status, so income from export, let's say to China, India, comes to zero tax-free. Zero, because we don't tax them. Unlike America, they tax you wherever your income comes. So that's very important to them. So the companies accumulate capital, which means they can reinvest. See, the key is if a man can reinvest, don't tax him. If a man cannot reinvest, you should tax him. Right? I mean, that's a key way. Next. Now, the biomedical science is very important here because it is not just production, it's also knowledge. So there are four, this is my diagram I came up. You see, pharma is drugs, nutrition, including baby powder, and then medical devices, and cancer drugs. The center is knowledge. You need a core of knowledge. With a basic degree is not enough. You need PhDs. So this is an area where I decided in 2001 I need to train a new generation of young people, all with PhDs. Anyone with a bachelor degree, I call them a test tube cleaner. I insult them because they think that's good and I will know. So I came out and it was a very arrogant no. I said, look, if you want to do real medical research, you need to suffer another 4 or 5 years to do PhDs. So then now they appreciate it. Next. So this was my plan. I came out in 2006, that basic science, translational science, clinical, and hospitals. So you need to go from the bench, the research bench, to the bedside. It must be comprehensive. If we do this well, we become a center for medical in Asia. And that's what our aim is. Thanks. So today we have the biomedical sectors in 3 phases. Phase 1 was basic science. I need PhDs, all PhDs. Then I need doctors who are translational, who understand science, having research labs in a hospital, not just a hospital. A hospital is a repair center. They treat one patient at a time, but what you want is to develop science to treat more than one patient, disease area. Next. So now we go into phase one is just explaining. The key for phase one is to get infrastructure, which I have to build by police, and have to borrow scientists from overseas. So this is an example. Next. Phase two is translation, how to move from science to the hospital. Unless you do that, then the doctors will not have the latest technology, for the patients. So the key is to link PhD scientists with doctors. So these are the initiatives I call these are translational clinical programs. Next. Now, the last phase is how to make sure it goes into economic. You don't just do healthcare for healthcare, but you look at healthcare as economic and also health outcome. So today we are in this phase, 2010 plus. Next. Now, the key to research, you need to have commitment to research, which means you need to put money for training of young scientists, you need money for research labs, so it's really a focus. So we started very modestly here. I took over in 2001, then I pushed it up. Financial crisis worldwide was slowed down, but we are back to it. I think the limit is, we're aiming for 2.5% of GDP. Most countries, to try to have 3% is quite tough because the limit is talent and not just money. So 2% of our GDP, 2.5% goes to research, which is sizable. Most countries are usually about 1.5. I would say Korea is quite high. America has dropped a little bit. So that's important. So we use ourselves as 2.5, maximum 3. Our limit is people. Next. So today we have industry. Now the key is you don't research for research's sake. You want to have research to develop drugs, treatments. So you have to work with industry. So industry is a partner. And therefore we have to collaborate with them. Next. So innovation, now biomedical is that you're going to develop new drugs, new devices, new treatments. It's basically you need to be able to give like licensing or know-how, which we find patents. We need to encourage startups. Startups are harder because a scientist may be good at science, but doesn't know how to run a company. The challenge for medical research is doctors and scientists are not actually CEOs. So that's the biggest challenge. The key is the shortage of CEOs. Go back one. And then the patent filing. That we can fund. These are areas that are easy. The most difficult is here. So one of the areas I try to do is how to borrow CEOs from overseas for other industries. Next. Now, if I were to start science as a young nation with no history of science, I need to kidnap people. I need to borrow scientists on a long-term, short-term from overseas. So I came up with a program of 100 scientists, one by one. I went out there to borrow them. Kidnapping is our honored profession. Next. Now, the key is kidnapping scientists is one thing, but what are their own people? So in 2001, I launched a program to train 100 PhDs a year, all overseas. So select young people, best in high school, what I call the A-level, top students, then send them overseas for 4 years of bachelor, 5 years PhD, 9 years. Full funding. Even when they're doing their PhD, they get salary too. But they must come home. Right? We don't believe in freedom. The moment we finish, come home to serve. We don't believe in liberty. They have to come, and they have to work for 5 years after they are free. We call that slavery. But when they are working, they are fully salaried. A PhD says no complaint. America doesn't give you that. You graduate from a PhD, you are poor. Here, I guarantee a job, you are paid, but after 5 years, they're free. I had an email from one of my young scientists, she has a PhD in neuroscience at UCL, University College London, PhD in Stanford. She finished her 5 years. In June last year, says, Chairman, I'm going to work in Roche in Basel. I said, congratulations. So finished her job. She's now in the world. So that's so it is soon you'll find young people from Singapore everywhere. There's a young lady working for us as a scientist in Genentech, California, working on cancer drugs. So my aim is I will have people everywhere in the world. They will be my mafia. Next. Now, so how do I treat young? I treat young people as guppies. You know, guppies are small fish. And they have to be nurtured, they have to be selected. The young man there sitting down is a top student in chemistry. The twins, identical twins, are genomics, genetics, MIT, Stanford. The young lady, the one I mentioned, who's gone to Basel, Roche. She's neuroscience, UCL, PhD, neuroscience, Stanford. This young lady went to Karolinska, works on cardiovascular, heart. Next. So now they are home. They are all well educated. 50% of my scholars are girls. Same pay. Unlike America, where women are paid less, in Singapore, the same pay. A woman in Singapore has an advantage, no military service. Boys, 2 years, so the boys go to university later. Next. These are all the PhD. Yeah. Next. Now, as a small nation, we have about 40,000 babies a year. Assuming we have 1% of really bright people, 400. That's a fact of life. Maybe you are generous, say 5%. So the only way for Singapore to grow is to kidnap kids. And I bring them from Malaysia. The first one from Malaysia, she's a PhD in physics, MIT. The second girl in the center is from, my pointer is, okay. This is from Shanghai. Chemical engineering, expert in solar cells. This young lady is from Hong Kong. She's in bioengineering, MIT. The young man from India, Carnegie Mellon, computer science. Computer science in 3 years, because we encourage our students to finish 3 years. They're very bright still, they jump. Computer science, bachelor, master's, economics minor in 3 years, GPA 3.97. I monitor GPA. The GPA below 8, I throw them out. My minimum is 3.8, preferably 4. This young lady from Vietnam, Illinois Chemical Engineering, GPA 4.0, MIT PhD. So 20% of my PhD students are borrowed, but they come to Singapore high school. I bring them to Singapore at grade 9, 15-year-old, fully funded for 4 years. Every year, you must A. No A, you go home. Because it's for their good. If they are good, I torture them for their own good, but they work hard. And they are in fact, they are more hardworking than Singapore students. Singapore students blame me, you are very nasty. They bring all these bright foreign students, they give us a hard time. And they raise the standard. That's good. Next. Now, what is human capital? This young lady is from India. This young lady is from Vietnam. See, they trust Singapore. They come to Singapore age 15. Singapore is a safe place. She's from India, she's Vietnam. They come to Singapore high school. And then they go overseas for a bachelor, then do a PhD. So then they do the postdoc. It's a 20-year time frame. Yeah. It's a 20-year frame. So when I tell people science is long-term, it's not making an IT app or iPhone app. It's long-term. She's now in Oxford finishing a PhD in biochemistry. She's at Imperial College finishing an MBBS PhD. At the age of 21, when they finish the undergraduate, because they go out at 17, 18, they come out at 21, I give them a Singapore passport. Okay. Kidnapping is serious business. Okay, next. So, when they come home, we have to monitor them. We track every one of them. The obligation is 5 years and they are free. Next. Now, see, they are now in research labs. They are in universities. Next. They are entrepreneurs. They are helping small and medium enterprises. They are experts. They are providing advice to industry. Next. Now, when these young scientists come home, where do they go? I cannot send them on the streets. So in 2001, December, recruiter Zaha Hadid, unfortunately passed away. I came up with this piece of land, which is opposite university, 200 hectares. I said, look, I want to build a knowledge park. One north is because Singapore is 1 degree north of the equator. So you call it one north. So there are 200 hectares. There are 2 zones, a biomedical zone and the engineering zone. This is a biomedical zone. We have for 3.5 million square feet or 250,000 square meters. All the labs are in different areas, and they come home here. Next. And these are all the buildings are connected. And then what do I do? The companies are located there. You see, in most governments, public research is a closed place. It doesn't help. So what I do is the same facility, companies can stay there, public research there, and public research pay rent. They don't own the place. Never allow government labs to own, then they think it's their kingdom. Everybody shares. So because they're co-located, they can steal people from each other. Because I visit America, NIH, I visit NSF, visit Europe, public research lab is like a monastery. But it doesn't help. So my idea, it should never be, and they will own the building. The money should be for salaries, for equipment. Why pay money for buildings? So what I do is I get companies to develop the buildings, the land and lease to them, 99 years. And then we bring in the companies and research at co-located. So when you visit a building, there's no sign of the lab or the name. They are just a tenant. They're paying rental. If I were to run university, your university buildings will all be tenants. You should never own a building. That way I can renovate, update. Next. So then for the engineering science, this is the NSF. This is my office is here on the 21st floor. So again, the same idea. The buildings are built by different developers. We control the land space. Next. And the buildings, now, no two buildings look the same. So Zaha Hadid does a master planning, but every building is a different architect. So you don't have this boring, one building look the same. Like in most places, you see one building of the. So every building is a different architect, different design, and there's a lot of monitoring of the environment, greenery. Next. And then for the media, as you know, because we have all the software people, so our media, the TV, radios, they redevelop, move to there. So they are our TV station, our all those companies and broadcasts are co-located because of infrastructure. Next. Now that I've trained the young scientists, now that the scientists are home, they are helping in industry, they are in research labs, how to encourage them to get out and start their own companies? I must find a way to encourage. So what I did is to create a space for them, low-cost innovation startups, so they can spend part-time or full-time, and they get out. Next. So this is my office here. So these are old buildings, old buildings, and new buildings. We renovated old buildings, and now we have 8 blocks. They are 56,000, 500,000 square feet. The 800 startups, there are people helping them, so they're all here. They are close to my labs. The university is this side, so these are young people. They rent for 2 years, low-cost rent, and then we provide support, seed funding, and hopefully they will survive. Even for those who fail, they learn. Next. So this is the environment. They have food, they have meetings, and the young kids can come. So the idea is to create a place where a lot of young people can interact, a social place. So now that we've trained the scientists, we've got research lab, how to create companies. So this is a model we're working on. Now this is supported by government agencies that provide the space. Next. Now we are also building another lab for the engineering area because those are closer to more software. So all the engineering labs are here. That's it, I think, right? Okay. Now they do startup. Who's going to fund them? Who's going to provide capital? So my agency, which stands for Standards, Productive and Innovation for Growth, which I'm currently chairman, we provide support for startups. We have accelerators. We give funding. We give grants and provide equity. So we take equity up to 1/3. The idea is that if I take equity, I must exit the moment the company is ready to go. And we give the equity back to the company. So our equity is credibility. So if I put equity in a startup, the bank says, okay, it must be a good company, supported by government, so it's easier. So these are the 3 initiatives. Next. So we co-invest in a company. My agency and the company and our partners, we also provide equity, and these are some of the companies. This company, for example, we supported them in their software development. After 2 years, they became millionaires. They sold out. So now they use the money for something else. Next. So these are some of the startups we supported. Remember, Spring is a government agency. I can give them 250,000 Sing. US is 200,000 US for proof of concept, and the proof of commercialization, another 750 Singapore, that's about US 600. So it's quite reasonable. So we give them up almost $750,000 US, from proof of concept to proof of commercial viability. These are some of the startups. Next. Now, go back one. Go back one. This one, go back, start, wait, next one. The one, further. This one, Rotimatic, you know. I was at dinner last night, I saw your bread, right? The circular bread. So one of our young men came up with this idea of making perfect circular roti. Roti is an Indian word. So he's now selling his little machine for people to make their own roti at home. Which basically put your dough, and then it comes up perfect. Huh? Yes, bread is bread. So hopefully it's succeed, because a young man, one of our young farmers say, I want to make something unique because roti everybody eats. Okay. Next. Now, we want to encourage the scientists in the lab. These are research lab. A-STAR is the Agency for Science, Technology, Research, which I was chairman, and the hospitals to come up. So the idea, you need hospitals and research labs to come up to apply something, because hospitals know what they want. Patients need treatment. Scientists have knowledge, but they need to work together, and these are the ones that we support. Next. Now, in my own experience, since 1990, I have worked with Indonesia, I worked with China. Next. I worked with Bangalore IT Park. Bangalore IT Park, I developed 11,000 square feet in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, and Pune. And there were about 80,000 IT professionals in different cities. Next. And in China, in Suzhou. Suzhou, we started in 1994. I took charge in 96 because earlier different management. Today, there are about half 500,000 jobs in that area, 7,000 hectares of land. Rice field land, nothing else, and it created this. But the Chinese followed Singapore's rules, regulations, almost a copy of Singapore. Next. And then in Vietnam, I have now 7 industrial parks, 2 in Ho Chi Minh, 2 in Hanoi, 1 in the center, 2 more. And there we help the Vietnamese develop. So what I do is I help them in planning, development, and they manage everything. I only provide a few experts. Unlike China or other countries, they send many people. Singaporean is small population. I only send 1 man, 2 men, and we do all the planning for them. That's it. So that's done. Next. And then my own hobby, whenever you fly a 787 or you fly an Airbus 350, you see the engine connect to the plane. I make the parts that connect the engine to the planes. Contract for GE, Boeing. So again, we have a problem with people. So what I do, I move my factory to Penang, Malaysia. I have 1,000 employees in Penang, and that's me. And that's my machines from Germany, that's for Ingersoll, American. So today I have possibly quite a high investments. What I do in Singapore, I focus on the brain. When it comes to labor, when I move to my neighbor, whether it's Malaysia, India, China, Vietnam, or Indonesia. I think that's it, right? So I give the Minister of Industry everything you need.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much. That was a great presentation.
It was fast.
This was excellent. No, this is efficient. I think being timely and being expeditious in talking and presenting will be one of our takeaways. I'd like to open the floor to questions. If you have a question, just please raise your hand. I'll call on you. Just introduce yourself, please, very briefly, and ask a question succinctly, and so that everyone can have an opportunity to ask questions. But please, the floor is yours. Anyone has a question, please, تفضل.
Press
بس اكبس الزر اللي قدامك on the mic. بس عرف حالك, please. Just introduce yourself, please.
Martin Safi, American University of Madaba, senior year, electrical engineer. My question is, you talk a lot about kidnapping others talented, but here in Jordan, I think we have an issue that people are planning, once they get the chance to leave Jordan and just go to America, Canada, UK. So we have that problem of keeping our people, our talented, to stay here in Jordan. So my question is how we can and keep them here, keep our talented. We don't have to kidnap anyone from other countries, because we have the source, we have the talented people here. So that's my question.
The key to keep your people, they must have jobs here. So the job of government is to create the environment, the incentive to attract companies to come here. When you have job employment, they will come, they will stay. People leave because there's no prospect, or lack of job. So the key is that if really the government works hard, like the way we work, there's no reason to leave. So really the responsibility on government to plan and attract companies to come here. And then in our case, we are short people, I have to kidnap. I will kidnap you if you want to.
Thank you. I'm staying here in Jordan.
So just to follow on to that, Dr. Yu, if the government needs to create jobs and accelerate economic development, and if we look at the Singaporean example, how can we emulate that? How can we say you have 2 or 3 of the largest, for example, baby milk factories in Singapore, but you have no land, you have
No babies.
no babies, you don't even have access to milk and cows. How did you do that, and what can Jordan learn from that example?
You see, the advantage of Singapore, we have a reputation of respect for owners, know-how, IP, and therefore we are able to serve our market. So when there was an American company, there are 3 companies which I dealt with, they will look at, the big market is China, 1.3 million people, millions of babies every year. But one of the problems of China is credibility, safety. So we knew that we have no chance because the company was attracted to go to China. So I went to see the chairman, I did my homework. I said, yes, if you go to China, you're sure your product will be safe. Never mind, can you export the product from China? You look at me, I guess that answered it. So they closed the idea in China and Singapore. We buy a milk powder from New Zealand. The factory is fully automated. They add in minerals, selenium. They are canned. The cans also bought from other countries and then extruded, shipped out. So we ship baby powder. Baby powders are very expensive. Baby is expensive, so they ship out. So when China had a problem with baby powder, they all come to Singapore to buy baby powder. So the key is that doesn't mean you have no factors of advantage. You can create. And the most important value to a country is your credibility, your reputation. You're honest, you're clean, nothing is impossible, so why not? Yeah.
Great. Other questions, please? Sorry, Noor, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure. I'm interested to learn more about the human development as well, and how perhaps I got the impression from the way that you spoke that the economic decisions sort of drove the human development. But how at the strategic macro level did those decisions impact the quality of general education to all? If unemployment is 2%, you obviously are producing what the labor market needs.
But if you look at my earlier chart, the phase of economic development, we realized that if we want to create jobs, we need to have skills. So the key is that education for education's sake is not a good model. Education that gives skills to a young man and a young lady that she can find a job. So we started was what called vocational training. And we have focused on apprenticeship, a German model we use. And then we focus on polytechnic. As you know, in UK, they have a very good tradition of polytechnic, but they closed. We kept the polytechnic. So very important to keep polytechnic. You see, a man or woman with hand skill can go anywhere and work. Then we limit the number of students in university at 25%. If everyone has a degree, there's massive unemployment. So in a sense that economic factors drive the education. So I was a member of the committee for professional technical education, work with Ministry of Education. So the Minister of Education looked to us and say, what jobs are you going to create? And tell Minister, what skills have you got? For example, the chemical industry. When I tried to build a chemical industry in 1995, I went to university, I found there were only 2 universities, 40 chemical engineers a year. I said, that's not enough. So they said, I want 400 chemical engineers a year. So university quickly ramp up. When the students graduate, they got jobs. So you should not have education for education's sake. You have to worry about impact of what happens to the student when they leave university or leave the school. So economic impact of education is very important. Most countries, they think education, that's it, my job is done. No. Even now in America, many universities are responsible for placement. Graduating students is easy, but what happens to the poor students? So it means that for a country, for a small country, the education and the economic planners must work together. Yeah. In fact, in Singapore, if I am a permanent secretary of education, you're a permanent secretary of trade industry, rotate you. So you think twice before being my own pick. So we have always been driven. So when I was involved in economic development, I would focus on skills. If I need electronic, I need electronic engineers. I need semiconductor, I need semiconductor engineers. So in a sense, we drive university. As chairman of the EDB, the chairman of A-Star, the 2 presidents are on my board. So they know what I want to do. They have no excuse. In a sense, I call the shots. Kidding. But because of that, the students have jobs. So they owe it to me because my interest is to make sure every Singaporean has a job. Yeah. So you cannot let education do just educate because it's not fair to the students. You spend elementary, secondary, university, and then come up jobless. Yeah.
Please.
Hello. Hello, Hamza Arsbi from the Science League. I wanted to ask you about, so while you're doing your reform, there is always, even if the political elite has, a clear reform vision, you still have pushback from within the government or from within the population itself. Could you explain a bit how you dealt with that kind of issue? Even if the upper management has a clear vision, people even underneath it might be pushing back against that vision.
Well, it's normal in every organization, especially as a pyramid. You have people who are resistant to change. My belief that people cannot change. You have to change them. So if I take over an organization and I find people can't change, I get rid of them, hire new people. Because otherwise things will not change. If you try to change them bit by bit, you waste your time. In any organization, if you take over, the first 2 years are very important. If in the first 2 years you cannot move fast, you cannot push through, you cannot ram through, nothing will move. But when you move, people know that you are doing for public good. So long as what I'm doing is not for personal gain, why should they hinder me? But you must explain your mission well. If you explain the mission, the purpose, I think most people will cooperate. For the small group that are unlikely to cooperate, it's better to send them to another organization. Export them. So I would say, by and large, you have to be very clear in what you want to do, explain to them, and by and large, most people are reasonable. But you will expect there was some. So I am known in Singapore as a bulldozer. What I want to do, you stand my way, you are flattened. But most people don't do that.
My name is Yusuf Amoura, and I'm an aeronautical engineer student. Actually, my question is about electronic manufacturing and hardware project. We see a lot of startup and high-tech sector. Here in Jordan is a country of entrepreneur, and there's a lot of startup in the field of hardware project. But when the matters come after we develop the idea and the proof of concept, we can't move forward to cover the need of the market. So how Singapore solve this sort of problem, and how we could encourage such activity here in Jordan?
Well, on hardware, you need to find a customer. So the key is that in Singapore, we're fortunate there are many multinational companies there making the product or component. So the idea is to link the startups with them. So every startup must find a customer. So you have to find a customer locally or abroad. That's very important.
When the matter is, there's a customer, but some of them, they find the challenges to do their project. So for shortage of resources, some challenges to make their project more doable for customer or with minimum cost. An example, some hardware, it may cost $100, and the same product costs $10, depend on how you're manufacturing it. So this is what I mean.
Well, the job of Spring, my organization, of which I'm chairman, we try to help the startups to find a customer. We provide some grant funding to develop a product and a proof of concept until the proof of commercial viability. So you have to help them. And the fact that we are helping them, the company, the customers will feel more confident. So you need government to be a helping hand, not to direct them, but to help them. So when the government comes in and says, can you please help this startup? I think they got good know-how. Can you provide advice, assistance? So you cannot leave it to them. You have to help them. But the most important, a big company has an overseas market. So they develop a hardware or component subsystems for a customer. You produce a global market. Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Dr. Omar, sorry, Dr.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yo. This is an honor, really, to see Singapore's history in industrial policy sort of shrunk down to a PowerPoint and see visually kind of the manifestation from the 60s till today. It's, for a Jordanian, it's a mixed feeling of feeling that this is within reach and being frustrated that we're not there yet. It really is, because the one factor, human capital, that can drive this is something we have, and is something, as you said, we experience brain drain all the time. And part of the problem we have in this region is it's not necessarily because a scientist or an engineer is becoming more productive in another country. We're surrounded by rentier countries that have oil wealth and can pay 20 times what we pay, not necessarily more productive or so it's very hard to compete in a region of where you're. So I think the challenge on brain drain for us is, and I hear this all the time, people are willing to come back at 50% or 30% of what they get there if they feel that it's a hospitable environment that's conducive for them to work and belong to groups like what you've. So that's one challenge. The other, and I think another area where the time is good for us, just like it is for you, is the supply chain around the world has been broken.
Yeah.
So you don't have to assemble a car. You don't have to assemble an airplane. If you specialize in one tiny element, and I really like this point that you emphasize, that assembly is not the point. The point is really
Value
specializing and focusing on the value add. The third thing you mentioned, and I'd like to hear more from you, if you will, is the incentive structure, and how do you the industrial policy and the incentive structure that comes from
go together.
Clearly, yes, they go together. And what is another lesson is industrial policy is a long-term policy. You don't change it every 6 months. You don't change it, otherwise you lose credibility, and you can't provide the right of incentive. So how do you select industries, and how do you give them sort of a specific incentive so that they're actually reinvesting, as you said, rather than taking.
Well, the key for industry, one of the key factors in industry, in fact, there are 2 or 3. One is land. So you must make sure the land is affordable. You should not allow industrial land to be speculative. So in Singapore, we started in 1961. Land for industry is 30 years, right? In 3 years, you don't use take back. We don't allow to make money from land. Commercial is different in residential. So industrial land. Secondly is that the infrastructure for industrial, we build everything. Electricity, water, switch. You can come to my factory, give you the key, start work tomorrow. It's just government job to prepare infrastructure. You're like running a hotel. For an investor to come in, they have to build their own factories, put their own water pipeline, electricity. It's very troublesome. So what we are making it very convenient for them is we have factories of different sizes, C, D, E, different sizes. Or if they want the land, or you can even build a factory for them. So the government must be proactive. You cannot leave it, because if we are going to attract a company, we should make it as convenient as possible. The third issue is incentives. If they don't come, there's no tax anyway. So why fight over tax issue? And ownership. Why you want to own something you have no influence? So we allow them 100% ownership and tax holiday. Tax holiday originally is 10 years. Now we extend it, which means that after 10 years, your tax expires. But if you bring a new product, a new component to manufacture, tax holiday continues. So you can come to Singapore like Hewlett Packard, they've not been paying tax for 40 years. Why? Because every time we encourage them, can you change a new product? So constantly pushing them. And as far as concerned, why not? Because every product has a life cycle, 5 years, 10 years is obsolete. So never allow them to continue to produce the same product for tax holiday. So the key. Third is that my officers in EDB are all engineers. That's why I favor engineers. So I look at what industry, what company, what they make, and then I select them and say, look, we'd like you to come to Singapore. These are the plans we have for you. So we are almost like consultants. We are not bureaucrats where you sit down there waiting for the guy to come. We go to them. So we have office around the world. We have office about maybe 30 offices around the world. We are called professional hustlers. We knock on the door. We tell a company. So the government's job is not just sit back and be a regulator. The government should be proactive and maybe in advance. So if you take care of the land, infrastructure, utilities, you make ownership easy, tax holiday is renewable so long they are productive, I see no reason why you can't succeed. And the key for the type of industry, we look for industries that high value. Industry that use technicians, use engineers, not industry that use assembly labor. It makes no sense for us to do. So you have to select the industry, but at the same time, every industry is a group. So some industry are more higher value, some are low. But as a group, this may supply to the other side. So for example, if I want to make a disk drive, high value disk drive, I still need the mechanical part, I need the stampings. So I might give incentive to a low value added because they support high value added. So you must see everything in the context. Not everything is high value. So for sake of a shoe, you get a horse, so therefore you have to be practical. So the idea of looking at the cluster, so you look at medical devices. Some devices are low value by the plastic tubing, some of the components, but you add value. So you see the industry as a group. So maybe I give it less incentive. For that industry, it's not so high value, give them 5 years. The higher value, give them 10 years, higher value, 15. So you have to discriminate. So every company is a case by case, which means you need officers who can make judgment, which means you need finance minister that trust you. But finance minister always worry about tax loss. Right? But we always tell them, if they don't come, there's nothing to lose anyway. Even when they come, they give employment, they pay payroll tax, they pay property tax. All the managers live in expensive houses. So there are a lot of indirect income for government. Unfortunately, finance people don't understand all those things.
Yes.
They
Just
only look at
a quick follow-up on this. Do people, because you have the flexibility of deciding on a case-by-case basis, does anybody accuse of corruption? Because, you know, how come you've given X and you didn't give Y, and on what basis? And because these are the two extremes. You either tie your hands completely, and therefore you're not effective, or you...
Basically, the integrity of the public servant is important. So we pay our public servant well. There's no reason to be corrupt. But every year they have declared assets, whether they have house or car. So you have to have public servants who are above board. But the key is to pay them well and make sure there's no temptation. If you underpay them, they will have no choice. Yeah.
All right, please, Maher. وبعدين prepare yourself so we can have some equality.
Gender equality, definitely. Okay, definitely. My name is Maher Maimoon. I'm the founder of Solar Piezo Clean. We're developing a self-cleaning technology for solar panels. I would like to thank you for focusing and mentioning licensing revenues and patent utilization. Because here in Jordan, we know everybody that we have the highest percentage of engineers in the world for the population. So definitely directing our researches toward practical projects and graduation projects in addition to their patents, toward doing something brilliant and can be licensed. We don't need to make everything from A to Z as commercial. We might go for licensing model. But I want to go back and focus on a big challenge as I'm sometimes train entrepreneurs for about business models. My colleague mentioned that after developing an idea, something very practical with a very good demand, we have the customer, we make what's called the proof of concept. After that, we are missing what's called seed funding and grants. So I would like to ask for your advice and suggestion other than the governmental fund, because here in Jordan, the government have financial challenges right now. They can't support such projects because they have other priorities. So what other suggestions can be followed in this critical case that the government cannot fund or seed fund such innovations? Yeah.
Well, in the presentation I have on seed funding, well, the key is that you need to bring in private sector. You need to bring in private sector. So what we have done is look for companies who are expert in managing accelerators. We call accelerators. And I provide funding to accelerators to help the companies or individuals to do proof of concept and proof of commercialization. And then we take equity in it. So you cannot just have the idea and stop. They need basic funding. But the key is that you need to have government. You see, you have come so far, you need to go further. So what we have done is to bring in investors from venture capital. Venture capital companies, we give them a tax holiday of 10 years. So you start a VC fund, we give a tax holiday, and then they can raise money locally or abroad, and they provide. But as a government, we can take up the wanted equity. The government must take a role in equity. But the government role is that the moment the company is ready, we must exit. We cannot hold on equity. We sell the equity back to the owners. The job of government is not to make money. The job of government is to give credibility and support. Definitely. So you should not try to profit from them. At most, I recover. Now, if the company fail, I lose money. But if the company succeeds, I get back my money and maybe some interest. So the role of government is try not, the key challenge in government, they try to make money. That's terrible. That should not be a job, because that becomes a conflict of interest. So what we do is we provide seed funding, we provide grants. Grants is tax-free. I mean, it's non-refundable, but the equity has to be reclaimed back. So you need government to take that further. But ultimately, you need the private sector. So you need to give the private sector tax incentive to provide funding. So if I were in Jordan, and there are many rich people, why not give them tax holiday for the funds they put in seed capital? Give them 10 years, even 15 years, because their money is sitting in the bank anyway. So the idea is, and then, so if, in fact, there's another way. If you run a bank here, most banks, they are dead accounts. Are you familiar? Anybody in banking? So in the UK, I have a friend, they found that many of the banks in the UK, after 15 years, nobody collects the money. So what he came up with this idea, is a good friend of mine. He came to the government, can I have this money to put in a social enterprise? He collected 500 million pounds. So now I heard that in the US, they're trying to look at it, because there are many dead accounts. Person has died, passed away, maybe he's moved, and the bank just sit down there doing nothing. It's quite a lot of money. So in the case of UK, it was 500 million pounds. It's a lot of money. So now you can use that for a startup. So if I have government, go to all the banks, how many debt accounts they have? Take the money aside, put in a pot, and make sure that it's used wisely. Right? I guarantee you all banks, even Singapore, I always score on my, can you please check the account is not moving, it's dead, right? Take the money out. But they'll say, what happened? Somebody come back. After 50 years, he comes back, unlikely. Which is true. Maybe there are some cases, but by and large, people put the money in their bank, they forget. So one way is to take some of these non-normal funds and support the startups. Yeah, you see this one. You see, so Spring provides support, but you need partners. And partners are both local or regional. And then we look at the value-added capital, and we fund them. These are some companies. Now in equity, now this is investment. This is putting money in. That means I can put money in projects. But equity, I can take 1/3. So we have two. One is money for the project, which is besides just grants, but investments, risk money. Two is equity. So you need. So if I were you, there are many people. Maybe what I can do, if you have regional countries, you said if you put your money in seed capital in Jordan, tax-free for 10, 15 years.
Good idea.
Right now, the money is in the bank in London.
Very good.
So that's one idea. So my British friend was smart. He got 500 million British pounds just for social enterprise. Because social enterprise are not just money making, but for social goals. His name is Ronald Cohen. Very successful. Yeah, go ahead.
Great.
Thank you.
So, Kareem Pawar, I'm a tech entrepreneur, but perhaps also a social entrepreneur, and we're investing in companies, in startups as well through Oasis 500. Many countries aspire to be like Singapore, but I think there's only one Singapore. And the recipe for success is something that's very difficult to mimic anywhere else. I would like to ask about the issue of culture. As His Excellency Dr. Omar said, we have many smart young people in Jordan. But I believe when it comes to the culture that accepts change and supports change, I find it here very lacking. And I would like to ask about your experience with resistance to change. How big a factor was this in Singapore, and how did you overcome it? Because I believe here in Jordan, we have traditionalists that are resisting change, and unfortunately their force is far larger than those who want to change. And I find that young Jordanians at the end of the day sort of give up against that, and it's easier to move elsewhere and start a business. So if you could talk about culture, I would appreciate it.
Well, I think the greatest impact on culture in business is government. So the job of government is how to reduce the red tape, the procedures of forms. So what we have in government in Singapore, there's a committee of senior civil servants whose job we try to find ways to cut the red tape, Because if these are removed, people can be free to move. So government is an enemy and an ally. Enemy because rules are normal, but become an enemy because there are too many rules. So the job of government is to cut the red tape. You can do a startup in Singapore on internet, 5 minutes. You can sell a company online. And if you have a complaint against a government agency or rule regulation, there is a ombudsman, they say, look, let's sort it out. So I think the role of government to reduce barriers is reduce the red tape. And that has to be done consciously. So every year the government puts up a review. How many rules can you cut? How many regulations can you do away? Every regulation has a purpose, but some people forget times have changed, things have changed. So the constant renewal of all rules is important, especially for startups, because startups are in a very gray area. They might cross borders. The other thing is for government to be active in supporting startups. If you have a young company, trying to sell the government is very difficult, because the government officer wants a branded product. You can buy from Paris, you can go on holiday, travel and see. So the government must consider, you should try to give support to young people, their own companies first. That requires the government consensus. Look, supporting a startup has a risk because it may fail. So therefore, you need a government to be supportive that, okay, if you want to start your companies, the possibility of that project failing is likely, but then the officer who is courageous should not be penalized. So there are a lot of things the government can play a proactive role.
Thank you very much, Chairman Yu. This was really eye-opening, fantastic for me, very, very educational. So thank you very much. The second thing I want to say is I'm extremely impressed with the quality of the questions that you have been asking. I'm very, very impressed, especially those of you that are still students. I'm really amazed at that. I want to make a practical suggestion, Shahem. Why don't we know that the central bank is trying to do something for entrepreneurs and venture capital funds and so on. So why don't we do something practical? Why don't you and I, and him basically, but I will help, why don't you get the names of those entrepreneurs that are interested in something like this, and then we can arrange a meeting for them with the central bank governor, where we will attend also, and we will share with the central bank governor what we learned today, and listen to their ideas, and maybe we can come up with something practical to move this forward. So those of you interested, let's say, those of you that are interested, I'm serious, I'm not joking. Give your numbers to Shahem. Maybe we can have a meeting alone at first to organize our thoughts, and then we can have a follow-up meeting with the central bank governor. Okay? Thank you.
Did you want to say something? I mean, a lot was said about, I cited the chairman of Hikma Pharmaceuticals, a lot was said about drugs and medical services.
Like my colleague, His Excellency, Dr. Omar, when I see this, it gives me a heartache. I feel so sad because, like you said, in so many places you can almost touch it. We're almost there, but we have always failed to make the final push. If we look at the healthcare sector in Jordan as an example, it's a perfect example. We have fantastic doctors, we have great hospitals, we have amazing medical schools, and we have a vibrant pharma industry. And yet we have failed to come up with a national strategy to make this work. We have failed. Whether it's the universities, whether it's the pharma companies, whether it's the government, whether it's the hospital association, the hospital themselves, we have failed to get together and come up. But that doesn't mean we should give up. I think we should continue to push to do that because, like you said, we have great doctors, we have great people. Our problem is we lose them. But even the ones that are here, they work in silos. They don't work together. They do not work. The same thing I can say about tourism. We have great tourism potential. We have great architectural sites. We have great nature. We have fantastic hotels and restaurants and so on. And yet, and of course, a great airline, of course. And yet, and yet we have failed to come up with a national strategy for tourism. So we need to continue. We need to continue pushing because really we have all the ingredients. We just need to put them together to come up with the puzzle or to come up with the cake. So we should not give up. We should continue to try to push. and come up with these national strategies that put all these individual entities together to create a team that can come up with a plan, with a master plan on what needs to be done. And I'm sure if we continue to do that, we will succeed. Thank you.
When I started on the biomedical healthcare sector, I formed a committee of the doctors, hospitals, universities, and I chaired the committee for the first 5 years. So we had a plan, and exactly what I did, my bench to bedside. So then we followed the plan, and everybody is involved. I think by and large people want to cooperate, provided you provide direction. The other thing is hospitals. I say, no, every country, hospitals, when they buy equipment, they pay a lot of tax. Equipment, right? You import MRI machines.
Yes, of course.
So I give you an example. I was in Colombia, invited last year, 2 years ago, and the government asked me to review, so I visited one hospital. It's in Cartagena, right? So this government in the area, very smart. They have a zone declared as a free trade zone. They build a hospital in a free trade zone, so all equipment in the hospital is tax-free. Then it says, what about the patients? The patients come here, they don't pay tax. The hospital has about 150 beds. Now they have to expand. So they break the rules. I said, this is outside the city, the free trade zone, all equipment tax-free. A great help. So you can think of creative ways. Nothing is impossible.
Again, a big heartache because you are talking about giving tax breaks and tax frees, and Jordan is moving in the exact opposite direction. Exactly.
Why?
They are all thinking about how can we get the doctors to pay taxes, how can we get the hospitals to pay taxes, how can we get more taxes. We are moving in the opposite direction. You know, again, over the last 20, 25 years, and we have seen many initiatives. We start with the right ideas, we start with the right initiatives, and then they get lost in translation somehow. But again, my message to our colleagues here.
By the way, in 1965 to 70, we are a poor nation. Our reserve was less than $1 billion. We give tax holiday. So if you have nothing, might as well give because nothing to lose.
Is sitting here.
So my finance minister, who was my deputy prime, was very smart. We have nothing to lose anyway. So the fact, as a poor country, you get tax holiday, that's against all the World Bank and all the advice. So our neighbor Indonesia, you are crazy, you're a poor country, but we became richer than them.
Yes.
Because when they come, there's multiplier revenue. Yes. So the key is that there's nothing to lose, why not give it? So if you give lower tax to companies, they will create jobs. So the government focus on short-term gain. Okay? So my deputy prime minister, very smart, passed away unfortunately. He was London LSE. He says, look, why can't I give? Because there's nothing to lose.
Zero.
And he went against all the grain. The World Bank says you're a crazy idea. Poor country must tax. These guys are cheating you. But we're against all the advice. We have succeeded. Today our reserve is 500 billion US versus 2 billion in 1965. No thanks to the World Bank.
So you should put Professor Yu with the government, actually, not with us. You should put the ministers with them too.
Dr. Abir, Valentina, and Dunya, 3 ladies back to back.
Yeah, please.
And then Dr. Omar.
Thank you for this lecture or the introduction or the discussion. I don't know what I will ask after all these questions. They raised most of my questions, but let me introduce myself, and my question will be by introducing. I am Dr. Abir Al-Bawab. I am a chemist, professor in a school from 20 years. 10 years or more that I'm doing research in the chemistry. I decided to come back from USA, from a center for innovation and research, and to build my country and lab and to do all these things. And I don't regret it at all. But since 10 years, I moved to the management of the research, hoping that I will do some difference. And last year, I'm with the government again, doing research, management, and innovation, hoping to do anything important or to enhance anything. My question as a chemist for you, or maybe it's like a comment. What is the nucleus to begin with? Like everybody say, we have a lot of initiation, a lot of young generation that are encouraged to do and they're willing to stay in the country. But how we can start efficiently? How we can start? We will start by having a strategy, we're having initiation, we're having passion from people, we're having like help from the government. I don't know how we can collect all these initiation and start really in a big way. Because being with the government for 1 year, it makes me a little not disappointed, changing my mind, because people are looking for the research in a different way. And now with the younger generation, they just want a company and want economy and want money. Government put taxes, and in the opposite, we need to make money and reduce the taxes. So I don't know how we can start. I think the nucleus is it's not building very well. And I'd like to seek your experience from Singapore, how they start in the 70s, maybe before all of us were born, most of us, the young generation, I mean. So we need from this meeting and this discussion today to get with a plan or to take with an idea, not just with discussion, and you encourage us a lot, but we need to have a good opinion and idea how to start really efficient and to use all the people ideas from today's. And being with the government this year as a research director, we have the Jordanian National Fund Research, and Valentina was with us in that board, and we have a lot of ideas, but we couldn't really start very well and strongly. My idea or my comment that the research is very important, and you point out in your valuable lecture how the research is really parallel, and it's the main point with any economy growing. But we seeking, or we are looking now that people looking in the research, basic research, and even the development research in a different way, because it doesn't bring money, it's absorb money from the government and from. So I would like to hear your opinion and advice how we can improve this way and to keep and to get experience from Singapore experience to go with it. And really, I would like to get out something today, really efficient.
I make two comments. I think for the government would like to help. One way for the government to create what we have done in Singapore is a pro-enterprise committee. And there are senior civil servants sitting there, and they will listen to companies' complaint. Because the government officers must realize they can be a factor for good or a factor for obstacle. So we have, and the head of civil service chairs the pro-enterprise committee. It's a very top senior servant, and they have to put reports to all the complaints we have. So the key is to make the government feel responsible for entrepreneurship. So government will carry the responsibility that they must support entrepreneurship, and that's important. The second is to form a task group that focus on one or two sectors where both the public and the private sector can sit together, because they may have ideas. So if I were you, let's say you are focused on maybe one area, engineers said, form a subcommittee of senior people there, and also the young people. Listen to their views. They may not be right, but there's no harm. So the government has to pay to listen. That's important. On research development, and the government must understand research is an investment, not an expense. If you treat it as research expense, then you are going to give up, because the payoff is far away. The investment in people are expensive. So education should not be seen as expense. Education is an investment. So education and research should be seen as so it means if you don't take the attitude, you start counting as expense, then you have a problem. So it's a mindset. On research and development, the government must decide how much you're going to spend aside. 1% of GDP, 0.5%, whatever your amount. Then you put the money aside. And 5 years, it cannot be year by year. Research is not funded year by year. So if you look for long-term projects that I do on startup, everything is on a 5-year basis. My development fund for equity for startup is 5 years. See, it has to 5 years because projects roll over, lost track of time. So year by year, the government takes back the money. So you must keep it as 5 years, then they roll. So the mindset for any development project, take a 3 to 5 year horizon. So if you look at my national technology, it's always 5 years.
Great. Valentina?
Yes, Doctor, now you are talking about education is investment.
Everyone knows who you are, but you want to tell us who you are again?
Okay, Valentina Qasisiya, the CEO of Abdelhamid Shoman Foundation. In the presence of our Minister of Education, and you were saying just now, education is investment, and every year you've been attracting new investments. So you need good educated children, and not all of them will go to university. So you need to have skills. How is your education system built? Like the young before high school?
Okay.
Thank you.
As you know, like Jordan, we inherited the British system of education, primary school, secondary school, polytechnic, vocational. But we have kept that in touch, and in fact, we have improved on it. So for elementary school, I mentioned to a colleague in Singapore, we did a review of education in 1979. My boss was then the Deputy Prime Minister, says, look, young children between 6 to 12, you are burdened with 8 subjects. I don't know about your country.
10.
10. So we scrap. So the young people from 6 to 12 has only 3 subjects: science, maths, and English. That's it. And mother tongue, because we have Chinese, we have Malay, we have Indian. So a young kid from 6 to 12 has only 3 subjects other than his language. When they reach grade 1, grade 7, American system, secondary 1, then you add in the history, geography, literature, because by which time the English foundation is good, the maths foundation is good, the science is good. So we have a big change, because when I was a kid, I had 7, 8 subjects. Most of the kids are bored to death.
Yes.
Right? So he came out at 3. Because of that, you agree? Yeah. So because of Mr. We started in 79. Today we are one of the top in science and maths. It was not by luck. It was not by chance, because we are British system, but the kids have only 3 subjects.
Nice.
And that's science and maths all the way to high school. For the kids at grade 10, because they are not academic, they go to the polytechnic, 3 years. We should not force every kid to college, come up with knowledge but no skill. So, and then, but we'll make the polytechnic as, if they spend 3 years at polytechnic and they work for 2 or 3 years, they can go back to university. Maybe they are more mature, they are more certain what they want. So, college should not be entitlement. It's a waste of money. So the idea is the German are very good. In fact, we borrowed from the German model. The idea is that skill is more important. So when I was chairman of economic development, I had 3 institutes of education under my portfolio. German-Singapore Institute, that focused on precision engineering. French-Singapore Institute focused on what I call electronics, more of the software. Japan on semiconductors. So those 3 institutes belong to my agency, and I was the owner. And the school starts from morning to 5, 2 weeks holiday a year. It's a teaching factory. When they finish the 3 years, they all have jobs. And also they have to learn language. They learn German in the German Institute. They learn French in the French Institute. They learn Japanese Institute. So the companies are German or French. So the idea is that it's important to give your people a skill more than just knowledge. But at the same time, you don't stop the education. They can continue when they are more. So the idea is that education should not be a one point, it should be a series. So if we look at our elementary school, we started in 1979, not that long. We had the top students in grade 4 and grade 9 in maths and science. And in Singapore, all schools are public schools. There are no private schools. So the standard is that if you're private school, it's because you can't cope with the public school. So it's the other way, because public schools, the teachers are well paid. The curriculum is very tough, but they make it. Some students can't cope. They have to apply to government to release from the public school to a private school where they pay full fee. They go to United World College, they pay $20,000. Yes. Singapore school, we pay $12 a month. $12 Singapore. I don't know how much they are.
$10, 7 JDs.
Yeah. Right. So public school has high standards, teachers well paid, facilities are good, but we are short of babies. I'm kidding. So now we have a problem.
We have many babies.
We can help with that.
We can help with that.
So the idea is that public school should be high standards, but the subjects should not too many. So until you are 13 years old or grade 7, you learn history, geography, and literature. But grade 1 to 6, it's all 3 subjects.
High quality, low numbers.
Yeah. So today now our maths syllabus is copied by Massachusetts, copied by Columbia. The Colombian government has taken our elementary school maths for all the education, but in Spanish.
Jordan, doctor.
They copy. They send the teachers to us. Well, we are free to copy. So they took the idea and they got Cavendish to help them, the publisher, to print in Spanish. Nice. So because see, the first 6 years of a student's life is very important. If a student cannot cope, that's it. it's too late for grade 7, grade 9, grade 10. So the idea of foundation is very important. Therefore, you should not give the kids too many subjects to learn. Become a jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah. So when we started a system, people say, we are shocked. I mean, the kids don't know geography, history. There's no worry. There's no hurry to learn all those subjects. If a child cannot read, cannot write, cannot do maths, what's the purpose of learning history or geography? Which is totally against all educational people. Say, this is crazy. You are very narrow-minded. You are very focused. But I think we prove them wrong. Because when a child is confident at grade 6, 12 years old, he goes to secondary school, he's a better person. He can learn the Shakespeare, learn his geography or history. So that's a model we expect. So I think in ASEAN, we are the only one with that model. Most countries still have this elementary school in many subjects. So many of our neighbors send the kids to our schools to study. And they are not free because they are not Singaporeans, they pay. So the president of Indonesia sent his son to Singapore to study.
Nice.
So there are many Vietnamese I know who send officials, but then they stay with their friends or family. Yeah. So I think the key to a country is your education is important. Your education is a foundation.
Absolutely.
So if you do the foundation, that's it.
Minister of Education is to your left, so. All right.
Well said.
Well said. You agree?
Said.
Many
I
subjects.
fully agree.
Yeah.
We have, in fact, if you count for a year,
yeah.
in some grades we have 14 subjects.
Wow.
And 7th and 8th grade we have 14 subjects, and it leads to exactly what you say, sort of dispersion.
Yeah.
The size of the textbooks is big, so even our good teachers spend their time rushing through through it with little time to engage with students who might have questions, who might want to do projects, etc. So what we're doing this year, or in 2018, 2019, is enforcing 20% of applied learning, where students can come up with, and this is, I'm talking about 8th and 9th grade.
Yeah. Grade 1 to 3.
Yes. 1, 2, 3, we are focusing on reading and writing, but we do have the problem of 4 to 6. Grades 4 to 6, they are crammed with stuff that we have to.
That's a good idea.
Dunya.
I'm Dunya Bashiti, a member of the Economic Development Team at His Majesty's Office. Thank you very much for the insightful session. My question is, Jordan has been facing a lot of challenges recently, and they're undergoing a stringent fiscal restructuring program, which is the IMF program. Which is keeping them from giving any tax exemptions or even changing all the tax system in Jordan. So when you're talking about giving incentives and about easing doing business in Jordan, the direction is moving in a different way. But not because they want to do that, because there's a lot of fiscal constraints. And the changes in the fiscal scene in Jordan is actually repelling investors from coming. So the number one constraint we have is the continuous changes in tax structure and any other incentives. That's one thing. So how do you tell government what to do? Because I'm very sure that they're in fighting mode. And also the basic needs in Jordan are not even met, like basic healthcare, basic education. How do you think about growth when you have necessities that are not met? So it's not really easy,
Well, taxes need not be zero. But if I have a company, I want to know certainty of tax. Whether it's 5%, 10%, I want to be certain over the next 20 years. If the tax today is 5%, tomorrow 20%, who want to come? I give you an example of Switzerland. Switzerland is not a cheap place. Switzerland is run by canton. There are 26 cantons. Every canton is responsible for finance. Federal government is not involved. So there's a canton in Switzerland called Zug. You can negotiate with Zug to pay a tax rate the same rate for 20 years. They are, in fact, all the key companies are there. IKEA is there, ABB is there, everybody wants to pay low tax for the next 20 years. So all companies don't mind paying tax if it's reasonable and consistent. If your tax today is 5 to 20, nobody will come. What we have done in Singapore, I offer you a guarantee of 5 years, 0, or 10 years, I honor it. But therefore, my argument is very simple. Tell finance me, if they don't come, there's no tax anyway. If they come, there's indirect taxes. Your jobs are created, they pay rent, they buy food, that's all. So the idea is government should look at more indirect taxes, because indirect tax has multiple opportunities.
But they're not immediate, and they want the immediate answers.
And then they are impatient. So you want to kill the goose for the egg, but then there's no more egg. So the idea is that you must prepare to defer. The best advice doesn't come from World Bank or IMF. They are always short term. But we are a small country, as we cannot call the shot. So idea is, what can we do to make ourselves indispensable? And the only way is to find policies that are consistent. If you go to a company and say, look, you come here for next 10 years, 20 years, same tax rate, who will not come? So it's not, in Switzerland, it's smart. You go to Zug, you pay, I think, 5 to 10%, next 20 years, negotiated. And they have all indirect. People go to Zug, they pay rent, they pay property tax, they pay whatever. So there are many ways to get money from a company, indirectly. Yeah.
You get one. No, you can't have another.
Also, like Jordan, the scene is not really clear. So what are we competitive in? What is Jordan, what's its sectoral focus? So do you think we should look at what we're good at and focus on, or should we look at things simultaneously? So are we a healthcare country, or are we a technology country, or are we a manufacturing country?
Well, I'm here 24 hours, so I have no basis to know your industry. The only thing I know quite well is Petra, yesterday. Yes. So the key is that you have to have your own people sit down and look at your strengths and weaknesses, what are the advantages.
Do we need to focus on something, or can we work simultaneously?
I think you have to focus. You have to choose 1, 2, 3. Yes. Yeah, and then it's nothing wrong to have many objectives, but you have to start with a few. And once you succeed or fail, you try. So the idea is to be practical. If you've got good doctors here, why not be a healthcare center? Why a hospital equipment have to pay tax? Let hospital equipment come in, bring in the doctors here, let the doctor get well paid, patients come, they pay. Yes. So for loss of income now, you gain more. But this hospital in Cartagena asked for my advice. I said, you are very smart. You put yourself in a tourist area, Cartagena, you pay no tax for all expensive equipment, and the patients who go there, they don't pay any tax too. But the hospital is now full. Yeah, interesting. They were asking me to get the government to give them more holiday.
More holiday. Dr. Omar?
After our mentor.
Dr. Amin.
After you see.
Thank you, Dr. Yu. Thank you very much. I really learned a lot from you. Thank you, Tina. Listening to our young people, I'm really impressed. I wonder why we can't make it. We should be able to make it. Yeah. With people like you, I'm really impressed. Going back to the points raised by my friends Karim and Shaham, and we mentioned something about it last night. You know, can you tell us briefly, of course, and how you managed to steer a traditional economy like the one in Singapore to become a high-tech? What are the lessons which we can learn from your experience? This is one point. My second is they call you or say that, Dr. Yu, you are a public figure who belongs to the private sector. Would you define, please, how was the role of the private sector regarding your economic achievements? Now, apparently, with what our friend Saeed said, we are following hopefully the steps of Singapore. You know, the private sector is really playing a major role in the development. Thank you.
Well, I explained earlier on that Singapore from 1819 to 1970 was basically a trading nation. So we really don't have industry. But based on trading, we have high unemployment. Unemployment in 1960s was about 30%. And we are a young population. The government was very worried. We have many babies. And the government tried to discourage, have only one baby, two babies. So now, side effect, we have not enough babies. But the problem is that a trading society doesn't create many multiplier jobs. So the government at that time, my boss, Dr. Goh, the chief economist, said, look, why not we bring companies to come here and use our workers, use our land, use our infrastructure, the electricity, water we pay, support them. So because of the companies, we move our direction. So we don't move ourselves. We just play the host of how to encourage companies to come. So therefore, you can change, but I explained in the curve, there are different phases. We started with low skill, semi-skill, and captainship. So we went through that phase. You can't do overnight. So the idea is that the government must see job creation as a key responsibility. And therefore, we focus on what are the skills that we need to attract companies. So then we look at technical training. So because economic policy influence education, that we need skills, we need vocational, we need technical skills. Therefore, we need to change our school system to fit the economic prerogative. So really, you can change provided you have urgency to change. And for our case, was employment. 30% unemployment in the 60s. By the 70s was still high, but 80s were quite full employment. So really is that we change not because we like to change because we have no choice. And the best way to change was look for industrial jobs. Industrial jobs give demand for services, banking, logistics. So really is that you should treat manufacturing as an engine of growth for other sectors. So when we brought in manufacturing, we realized companies need to manage their funds. Then we create a US dollar fund, so multiplier effect. Yeah. So that is a key responsibility. On government supporting entrepreneurs, I think the role of government, the government cannot create jobs. It's the responsibility of government to help companies to create jobs. Government should not be obstacle to private sector. The government job is to facilitate, because at the end of the day, if the private sector makes money, they pay taxes. So the government see themselves as a partner to private sector. If you don't make money, I got no money. Therefore, I must have you be profitable so I can get some money. So if your tax rate is, I don't know what the tax rate is, 30%, therefore you are technically a 30% equity holder in the company. Yes. So you must see government as, I have to help you because it is my self-interest, because you are successful, I collect money. You fail, I have no money. So government should not see the private sector as an enemy. Government should see the private as your ally and a means to create jobs. I know in some countries in the Middle East, all the jobs are government, that's not healthy. So the government will therefore be a burden. In Singapore, we have no pension for civil servants. As a civil servant, as minister, we are all on salary. So the government of Singapore will never have a pension problem, unlike US. But we force people to save. So when you are working as a young engineer, 20% of your salary goes to a savings fund that belongs to you. Any employer has to contribute 15%. The cost employer of you is 115. And that belongs to you, safeguarded until you're 55 or 60. Now we're putting 60 because people are living longer. Early days, 55, you take your money, go to Havana. Now they're living longer. So the worry is, can they afford to live longer? So the idea is that you must make it a point to help people to save. You should not leave it, people will not save naturally. So government force, now what happens to savings? The savings can use to pay for your house, to buy a house, can pay for your education, pay for health care. The saving belongs to you and it moves to you, and can also use your savings to help your parents. So we are the only country in the world that have a very comprehensive savings scheme by law that you have to save. If you leave it to them, nobody will save. So therefore, we don't have the problem. So the idea is that you want, and what we have done, when we force people to save, that fund is saved, the government borrows from the fund to build infrastructure. So there's another way to make money by using the savings. If the savings were left in a bank, nothing will happen. So the government of Singapore borrows from the savings funds, arm's length, pay interest, and they use that to pay for housing, construction. Then the citizens can buy the house and they pay back from their mortgage over deduction monthly. So, yeah.
All right, we're going to go into a little speed dating forum here.
Very quick question.
So we can get some questions in. Yeah, there are some questions coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
His Excellency is leaving. خلاص.
Speed dating question format. So Dr. Omar,
A quick one, yeah.
I might ask one of the ladies over there.
We are very fortunate to have such a brilliant Eisenhower Fellow. We are three of us here today, Ambassador Qawar, Valentina, and I. And Roba, where is Roba? I can't see her. Roba, and we'll see the rest tonight, inshallah, hopefully. And I tried to convince the government to follow your experience. We were very inspired by your experience regarding arbitration. I'm an arbitration practitioner, and tried to convince them to abolish the taxes on arbitration, with no success, of course. I saw some statistics the other day about China, that 60% of every Chinese individual with a net worth exceeds 1.2 million is thinking to move to Europe and the States. I want you to explain to us this, because you are an expert in the region. And the other thing I wanted Dr. Omar to stay, but you are surrounded by current serving and very high senior ex-officials. What's your clear message to the decision makers in Jordan? Thank you.
Well, as I explained earlier on, the role of government is to help create jobs. And the role of the private is to create jobs. So the job of government is to help the private to succeed. So 5 ways and means to make it easy for them to operate. Ways and means to save money to reinvest. Because every time we tax them a lot, there's no more money left for reinvestment. So the government must see itself as a partner, a self-interest in the success of the private sector. I mean, it's very simple. So the idea of tax for tax's sake is very silly. So the idea is that if I tax you and the money goes to the government, doesn't grow, great jobs. But if I give the money to you and you do nothing, I have to tax you. So the idea is how to incentivize companies to create jobs. If they create jobs, they can keep the money. They don't create jobs, we should take the money.
Create jobs in the private sector.
Yes, not government.
Not government.
Understood. Government should not create jobs. So that's why in Singapore government, there's no pension for civil servants, which is against the law practice in every country. Huh?
Maybe you are the only country.
Yeah, there's no pension. So we feel that everybody should be self-saving. So we pay the civil servant, but they must save. Yeah, in most governments, the civil servant depend on pension, then become a burden to the country. So Singapore government has zero debt, no pension to owe. But because we force people to save, and then they can use it for their housing, and they can have care. So the role of government is to make rules and regulations that help the economy to grow. And now when you mentioned that I operate as a civil servant. When I was a civil servant, I spent half my time in industry. So I am what I call on both sides of the coin. Then I appreciate running a company is not easy. Then I run a company, I have to pay tax, payroll tax. Okay. So I learned that it's the other side. So I learned to fight my colleagues on the other side. So if your civil servants see two worlds, if they see only one world, then they're all regulators. You force a civil servant, and I have only one salary. So I operate in two domains. So in a sense, some people confuse, am I a public person? I say, my job is to create jobs, either as a public servant or as a private person.
All right, I'm gonna take actually 4 questions in a row.
Okay.
And then I'll have Dr. Yus. رجاء لؤي sorry اسمك وحنين 3 و4 and then وفارس.
Yes, go ahead.
Let's take 3 questions in a row from here and then 3 from here. Please, Rajai.
So my name is Rajai Nassar. I'm a power and energy student at Princess Sumaya University for Technology. You told us that Singapore has a lot of foreign investors.
Yes.
And investment creates jobs, and jobs lift up the economy. And my question is, how do we make our country attractive for foreign investments and even local investments? I believe that there needs to be trust between the country and the investors.
Yeah.
They need to trust that whatever they're investing in won't fail and won't go bankrupt. So how do we build that kind of trust, and how can we make our country attractive to these investors?
Okay, so FDI and for local investors, Luay.
Okay.
We'll take three. If after you, is that okay? We'll take three questions.
Sure.
Luay?
Okay.
And then you can answer all three if there are some overlapping.
Hello, my name is Luay Malahme. I'm head of innovation at an education group called Luminous Group. We've built a hardware technology incubator focused on 3D printing, robotics, IoT, like a year and a half ago. We invested in 67 startups and that created 200 jobs. We actually follow the model of Spring. So we have grants, we have strategic partnership, but so we have from the idea stage to the incubation acceleration, and now we're looking to have a venture capital fund to support these startups. But what's missing is actually what you presented to us in the strategic partnership, which is the public-private. How can we create distribution channels, supply chain? But also, my main question is regarding education within this context, which is if you look at automation and advancements in technologies already displacing jobs around the world. And while the gap between education versus industry needs are increasing, how can a country like ours, like Jordan, basically prepare to future-proof our citizens, and especially millennials? So if you're talking about the people who are aged 25 and above to 35, we already can't go into start a new education based on a plan, but more actually of how can we support them in the current situation.
Okay.
Okay, Rabia, you're third, and then I'll take.
My name is Hanin Tabsim. I study biomedical engineering at the German Jordanian University. And taking a step back and looking at the big picture, when looking at Singapore, we can see the principle of quality over quantity very clearly. While here in Jordan, I believe this contributed greatly to the transitions from labor-intensive to skill-intensive and so on. But here in Jordan, with the growing diversity of our communities, how can we achieve such a consistent transition throughout the whole community equally? Thank you.
Well, the power of education for FDI, in our accelerators, we provide funding for them to train the young startups. We have to train them because you may have an idea, but running a company is very different. So we have to bring in people from overseas. We bring from US, wherever, and they run courses. So we have an entity called ACE, which is our Action for Entrepreneurs. We fund them publicly. They hire people from abroad. They run courses for young entrepreneurs. Young entrepreneurs need training. For example, financial training, very important. Most of them can't do finance, can't read accounts. Secondly is whether they learn how to market. Designing a product is one thing, selling is so marketing skill, financial skill. And third is also basically human resource, how to recruit. So to help your startups, you need to have support in how to be an entrepreneur, how to manage entrepreneur. I think that is a job where the government can provide support, but you need to hire external advice. And in many countries, in the US or Europe, they have these professional companies that help startups. So it may be faster to hire them short term, whatever, to train your young entrepreneurs. That's one. Second one?
FDI.
And FDI, now, when we promote investments, we are very targeted. We don't go there and knock on all doors, very clear. We think this company, so which means I have to do research on the company. So when I look at a company, I do the annual reports for the last 10 years. I'm basically an intelligence agency. I do all my homework. What is this company? Where is the company going? Say, where do you think I can fit in? What product or service that I can entice them to Singapore? Which means I do a lot of homework. So which means we have to be very proactive. Then we come to the company, we negotiate with them the terms of the package, whether land, labor, inspectors, then we honor it. And even if the price of property goes up, we don't change. In many countries, let's say they rent from you land for, say, $1 per square foot. Property market goes up to $10. They try to make money. In Singapore, whatever mistakes the government make, we honor it. Because the key is being consistent, being reliable, right or wrong. So for foreign investment, the credibility of your government is very important. So when I was doing investment promotion, if I find key investors, the chairman and CEO, I bring them to see the Prime Minister. So I tell the Prime Minister, you are the chief marketing officer. Because if an investor comes in, they want assurance for the political leaders that they are welcome. So investment promotion should not be left to some young junior official. It's a job of the Prime Minister to promote investments. Because if the Prime Minister doesn't promote investment, there are no jobs. You only have a job too. And which my Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew was very clear. He tells me, whoever wants me to see, please send it to see me. So when I tell the company, I talk about facts and figures, my Prime Minister talks about politics, assurance, everything. So the Prime Minister must be important to play, to give to an investor certainty of policies, certainty of their welcome is real, they're unlikely to change, and anytime they can come to government to ask for help. So in most countries, they think investment promotion left to the investment promotion. You know, it's the government Prime Minister. So that is the way it is, yeah.
And maybe on that point, you can tell us about marketing. I mean, you've been known to say, I need to sell ice to the Eskimos. Sure. I need to be a very good marketer. How do you convince a company that doesn't look at your country as a location or destination for a particular industry and convince them that, in fact, you are?
Well, I use the petrochemical complex. I have no land. When they reclaim the land, I have to pay $10 US per square meter, which is not cheap. Saudi Arabia is free. I have no raw material. I have to buy raw material from Middle East, from Indonesia. But what I offer the companies that when they make money in Singapore, the money is totally tax-free. And they own 100%. Every country, they have to give up partnership. They have to give equity share to a local, which is a rent collecting mechanism. Singapore doesn't do that because, first and foremost, we have no markets. So being handicapped is an advantage. I have no market, I have no land. So I have to be creative.
Being handicapped is an advantage.
Yeah, being poor is an advantage.
Being
you can
poor
create.
and handicapped is an advantage.
So you have to create, what are the ways and means to make yourself indispensable? So if I look at Saudi Arabia, they have all the land, they have all feedstock is full, they just produce oil cheap. Now they realize.
What's today's line, I think?
Now they are going downstairs. Now my friends in Saudi Arabia always come visit Singapore. And because at the end of the day, you must get the maximum value added. You should not be shipping oil, you shouldn't be shipping barrels of oil as city. Okay. So the key is that you must treat your investor as honored people. Because without them, you cannot create jobs.
Yes. All right, we have 5 minutes. I'm going to, Faris, sorry, اسمك? وشهد. وبعدين we'll see if we have one more. تفضل فارس, please.
Thank you. Faris Saigh, founder and CEO of Ru'ya TV, a leading media network in Jordan. I was hoping Dr. Omar would be here to hear the answers or participate. But yeah, I'll ask him on another occasion.
You can see, you catch all him.
My first question is, has Jordan ever asked for your help or for Singapore's help of how we can possibly learn from the experiences and maybe on an official level? That's the first question. The second question, it is obvious that the current government is incapable, considering that they have no future long-term vision. Even that their current budget has almost no plans to create jobs. What is it that can be done in terms of...
you have to ask him.
Exactly, but your advice of... Yeah. Are we supposed to wait for the next government, or
well,
is something that could be done?
I have no position to give advice there. Yeah, it's that.
Okay, so that's first question, and I'm going to take Shahid's question, and then maybe you can answer both.
Yes.
تفضلي Shahid.
That's Mission Impossible.
Okay. Hello, this is Shahid Douglas, the founder of a startup called TechTib in the medical field, as I said.
Good.
Dr. Philip, according to the human capital investment topic, I want to share something or to ask you something. Can you mention the name of some powerful organizations and institutions in Singapore that give some opportunities to international youth, such as Jordanian youth, and to be specific, scientific research opportunities that will for sure allow the exchanging of knowledge and skills, and to contribute to the economic and social development. So please.
Okay. Well, in our research establishment, more than half our researchers are from overseas. So if there are young scientists or young professionals here who want to work in a research that we can apply, we are very open. In terms of, we have exchange program with universities. So we have exchange program with particularly US and UK and Europe, where we send our young scientists on a internship or attachment. And also we have joint research project. Right now, as I'm concerned, I don't think there is any collaboration between your universities and our universities. I'm visiting today some.
Yes.
I'm visiting to this afternoon, so I will listen to them. I'm going to visit their cell therapy center. I visit the HTU, right? That's the university, so I'll see. So I will see that we're welcome. Singapore is a very international place. So you see our scientists from Russia, from Germany, from Japan, anybody. So anybody who speaks English, and we got good food too.
All right, and Faris had asked the question, has Jordan asked for your help? We're not, have you been asked for?
I don't think.
Not yet.
No, I'm not aware of.
So I think it's the witching hour. I wish we had more time for questions, but it's tough to synthesize or summarize our discussion here, but I think we'll take, you know, Dr. Yu has many famous statements. You know, he often says, I break the rules, I don't follow them. He often says, you know, he'd rather hold back the horse than kick the mule. Yeah. So he's all about action. But I think from today's chat, it's not being poor and handicapped is an advantage. So we have a competitive advantage that we can take. I think we'd all like to welcome you again to Jordan. Thank you for your time. It's been a privilege and an honor for all of us to learn from you. And many of us will be present this afternoon to hear more from you. So please join me in thanking Dr. Yu.